Guys, questions on the homework before we get started? All right. All right, guys, let's focus in here. If there's no questions on the homework, first thing we're looking at is this here. B minus 6 is equal to the square root of 18 minus 3b. So again, is there one radical? Yes. If so, get it by itself. Well, it's already by itself. So we can put both sides to the nth power. So 5.42. Now, since we're dealing with a square root, we're putting both sides to the second power. Now, it's kind of nice because the right-hand side, the square root and square would cancel, leaving us with 18 minus 3b. Our b minus 6 squared, well, that's the same as saying b minus 6 times b minus 6. We're multiplying it by itself. And as tempting as it is to just say that this is b squared plus 36, or just squaring both terms, we really have to multiply this out. So the first thing we're going to do is distribute the b. b times b is b squared. b times negative 6 is negative 6b. Negative 6 times b is negative 6b. And negative 6 times negative 6 is plus 36. Questions on this so far? Now, before we start moving anything from one side to the other, we do need to combine our like terms. Negative 6b minus 6b is negative 12b. Plus 36 is equal to 18 minus 3b. Questions on this so far? Yes, since we do have a b squared term, we do need to get this equal to 0. So the first thing we can do is add 3b to both sides, which would give us b squared minus 9b plus 36 is equal to 18. Then we would minus 18, giving us b squared minus 9b plus 18 is equal to 0. Now at this point, we can use the quadratic formula, we can factor, we can graph it. I think out of all these methods, y'all would prefer graphing, yes? So we can grab the graphing calculator. Now, even though we are not going to plug it in as b, we can plug it in as x. So when we hit y equals, we're going to say x squared minus 9x plus 18. Graph. Now we do see that it crosses the x-axis in 2 spots. And they're both going to be positive. And our 2 locations are 3 and 6. So it's telling us b is equal to 3 and b is equal to 6. Questions on this here? Now, since we did get 2 solutions and one of our variables was outside the radical, it is going to be helpful to check these here. So we can plug it back in. So 3 minus 6 is equal to the square root of 18 minus 3 times 3. Now, if we look at the right-hand side, square root of 18 minus 3 times 3 is 3. On the other side, we have 6 or 3 minus 6, which is -3. So b is equal to 3 does not work. Even though they're both positive, b equals 3 does not work. The other solution we have is 6. Minus 6 is equal to the square root of 18 minus 3 times 6. Well, the left-hand side is kind of nice because 6 minus 6 is 0. If we check the radical, minus 3 times 6 is also 0. So our only solution for this here is that b is equal to 6. So even though both of the solutions were positive, one of them worked and the other didn't. Questions on any of this here? We ready for the next one? So 4 plus the square root of -3m plus 10 equals m is our equation for this here. So is there one radical? Yes. Get it by itself. So we would subtract 4. And we subtract 4 from both sides. The left-hand side would be the square root of -3m plus 10 is equal to m minus 4. Is the radical by itself now? Yeah. So now at this point we can put both sides to the nth power. And our nth power in this case would be 2. Because we're dealing with the square root, we're going to square both sides. Now the left hand is nice this time. The square root and square would cancel, leaving us with -3m plus 10. Now our m minus 4 squared, it's sometimes helpful again to rewrite it out as m minus 4 times m minus 4. Now we can distribute this here. Our m times m is m squared. M times -4 is -4m. -4 times m is -4m. And -4 times -4 is exactly plus 16. Now again, before we start moving anything, -4m minus 4m is -8m. Now because we do have an m squared, we need to get this thing equal to 0. So we can add 3m to both sides, which will tell us that 10 is equal to m squared minus 5m plus 16. And we would subtract 10. So 0 equals m squared minus 5m plus 6. Now we need to find the values of m. I have a feeling we want to graph this one again. So we take x squared minus 5x plus 6, graph. We do have two solutions. They are 2 and 3. Because those are the values of m, that will make the equation be 0. Questions on how we got 2 and 3? Yes? So we good with this finding 2 and 3? Yes? Now, all right, guys. So 2 and 3, we're going to check this. M is equal to 2. M is equal to 3. So when we check this, we've got to check it with the original problem. So 4 plus square root of -3 times 2 plus 10 is equal to 2. Now the left-hand or right-hand side is going to be 2. And as much as we want to move things across the equal sign when checking, we can't. Because at this point, we're wanting to check to make sure that the right-hand side is indeed equal to the left. Yes, we're checking for inequality. So moving things from one side to the other is assuming inequality. We can't assume it to check it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's almost the equivalent if I'm trying to show that you're guilty, I'm going to assume you are. You can't assume it to show it. It doesn't work that way. Did I just confuse you?
No.
Well, or in another context, the way I'm going to prove that you're dating somebody is because you're dating someone. I can't show it because it exists. You can't do both. So 4 plus the square root, we can plug all that in the calculator. 4 plus second square root, negative 3 times 2, plus 10 is 6. 6 is not equal to, so 2 is not the correct answer. So when we try it again with 3, we get so there is no solution for any of these here. All right, guys, focus back in here. So again, even though we had a solution, we found 2 solutions, it ended up being neither of them worked. Neither of them worked out to give us the answer we needed. Questions on this here? All right. All right, guys. All right. Focus in here. Now, looking at this here, there is one radical. We need to get it by itself. So the first thing we can do is what? Add into both sides. So square root of 6n plus 19 is equal to n plus 2. Yep. It wouldn't be 2n. The only way it would be is if 2 and n were like terms. And since they're not like terms, we can't add them. All right, guys. All right, guys. Now the left-hand side, the square root and square would cancel, leaving us with 6n plus 19. Our n plus 2 squared is the same as n plus 2 times n plus 2. Now when we distribute this here, we'll get n squared plus 2n plus 2n plus 4. Because we'll distribute the n times n times 2. It's a lot of 2's, a lot of n's. 6n plus 19 is equal to n squared plus 4n plus 4. Questions on how we got to this point? Now we need to get this thing equal to 0. So the first thing we can do is subtract 6n. That'll tell us that 19 is equal to n squared minus 2n plus 4. So 0 is equal to n squared minus 2n minus 15. Questions on how we got our quadratic? All right. Let's graph this. X squared minus, guys, 2x minus 15. Graph. Again, we do have two solutions. One's positive, one's negative. 5, negative 3. Questions about how we found these two solutions? Negative 3 and 5. Pretty much. Which one of these two do you think is probably not going to work? Or negative 3. Let's do it first. So we have negative 3 plus the square root of 6 times negative 3 plus 19 is equal to 2. Well, the right-hand side is 2. So negative 3 plus second square root 6 times negative 3 plus 19 is 4. 4 does not equal 2. Negative 5 plus the square root of 6 times 5 plus 19 is equal to 2. Negative 3 does not work. 5 does. Questions on this here? All right, guys. That is indeed. You have the rest of the time to work on these 46, 5, 6, 49, 51, 53, 55, 57. 7 problems.